Wrong, that's the theme. And Geoffrey, so talk to us.
Well, my name is Geoffrey Meekrer, and I am the owner and founder of French Truck Coffee, and you may have seen my little Citroën Deux Chevaux tooling around New Orleans, and that really is what it looks like when it's going down the road. It looks like it's tooling. I roast coffee, and hopefully I've fueled some literary works along the way. My background is as a chef and a culinarian, and about, I guess, 9 years ago, I had a little girl, and that little girl didn't want to have a dad that got home at 2 in the morning. And so I transitioned out of the restaurant world that I was in, and became a stay-at-home dad. And while I was a stay-at-home dad, I had a cousin who was working in California at a restaurant called Chez Panisse that is world famous. And she was tired of the grind and wanted to come visit, and we had moved away just before Katrina, and we're living in the Virgin Islands, and she picked up a bag of coffee from a company in San Francisco and came to visit us for the summer. And we took that bag of coffee and we ground it up, and it was the best cup of coffee I'd ever had in my life. And I didn't understand why I had never had coffee that nice before. And so I started doing research on the company and found out that the guy who had founded it had no culinary background, he had no roasting background. He just figured out something that America has long forgotten about coffee because it has become so mechanized, and that is that the fresher the coffee is from the roaster, the better it's going to taste. And I tell people in New Orleans, people say, hey, of all the cities, why in the world would you go into business in New Orleans? And it's pretty simple. Most of the roasters in New Orleans have factories. I have a shop. Wade and Z have come to visit me. It is nothing glamorous. It's a warehouse, and I've got 2 little roasters in it that plug away. And the big difference between what I do and what most of the coffee in New Orleans is, I roast it and I take it to the people that ordered it. I don't have shelves and shelves of coffee and hope that it gets ordered. I wait till somebody picks up the phone and calls me and says, I need, and then I fire up the roaster. And hopefully you can taste the difference in the new espresso that I came up with for Wade and Z. They came to me and said, we'd love to use you, but we've already got a roaster. But we've got a challenge for you, and if you can meet the challenge, we'll start buying it from you. And the challenge was to come up with a fair trade organic espresso. And that is a challenge for a very simple reason. 90% of the espresso blends that are consumed in this country contain beans from Brazil that help create the crema, or the Guinness part of the espresso shot. And the way they do that is there are 2 different ways that beans are handled. One is a washed process where the beans, the outside cherry, the red part.
Now we're going to get into weeds.
Oh, is washed off using water and a fermentation process. And there's a dry process that waits for that cherry to dry and then hulls it off. That's what you need to make the crema, because you need that little bit of natural mucilage left on the bean to make the crema. Okay, now we've got the technical part out of the way. Brazil does not play fair trade or organic. There's very little of their coffee is certified organic, and even less is fair trade. So that eliminates the primary bean that you need to make true espresso. So I did something that as a roaster you're not supposed to do, and that is you combine 2 big flavor beans. So we found a fair trade organic Sumatran, which is a natural process which gives you the crema, and we found a fair trade organic Colombian, which are usually 2 beans that stand on their own with some Brazilian in the background to help make the crema. And so we put those 2 together and tasted them, and they tasted fantastic, which is contrary to everything. That is not what you're supposed to do with espresso. You're not supposed to take 2 big flavor beans and put them together. And we did, and it tasted good, because I was up to the challenge of finding this, but I didn't want to start serving something and everybody went, ugh. Where'd you get this? French truck?
Oh, okay.
And I had it tonight, and I gotta say, I'm really thrilled with how it is turning out, because we've done some...
Well, and it's also got a good crema.
Yes, it does.
Which is not supposed to happen at all, and which everybody we talked to said was not possible.
Right. So we did it, and that's pretty exciting, and I'm really happy to be here, and thanks for having me come. And it's really neat to see it in action, because this was the first time since we made all our tweaks to machinery that I've come and actually had it in the shop, and it's fantastic.
Well, and Z's probably asked a lot of people. I come here when I'm in town, either Saturdays or Sundays, and do my hour or two, and just, my own focus group of, I work the bathroom here. But I asked people who were getting the espresso how they liked it, since I knew it was new and they didn't know, and people have loved it. That's what they're telling me. And then I'd say, hey, we're finally 100% fair trade. This is new. Seriously. Oh, well, yeah. And I think the response has been good, yeah.
Absolutely. Our hardest critics are always the baristas behind the counter. Before anyone else got a taste of it, they had to okay it, and they all loved it. So we were a go.
Yeah, which is opposite most businesses where you actually pay somebody before they tell you what you want to hear.
Not this business.
This particular business, you hire a team of critics that happen to occasionally, do what you're begging them to do. But yeah, but I think it's been good. And
much like running a kitchen, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a culinarian. I like that. We should put that in some dictionary. But it's, if we had a daily paper, this would probably be headline news. We don't have that, so we wanted Geoffrey to come. And we're going to have to figure out a way one of these times to do a tasting or something. And
tell us about the Citroen.
It was born in 1975. It did most of its life in Bordeaux as a work truck.
Damn.
Yeah.
Look at that gig.
And then it was imported to New Jersey, where there's a gentleman who does full restorations of Citroen products.
Yeah, he was just written up in New York Times or something.
Noel Slade? I believe so, yeah. He's in Toms River, New Jersey, and got really wiped out by Sandy.
Yeah, same guy.
Yeah, okay. So he's moved to a new garage, and that's fantastic. But that particular truck had the entire body removed, the engine, everything. It's got a brand new frame. It's going to have a brand new clutch this week. But it gets 55 miles to the gallon because it is a 2-cylinder 600cc engine.
Wow. 2-cylinder.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a go-kart.
So it's a motorcycle with
a truck on it, yeah.
Pretty much. It will go 70 miles an hour. I have been on I-10 with it, and it is hilarious.
Is it terrifying?
I think it's less terrifying because you get this bubble of cars around you trying to take pictures. So I'm kind of protected on all sides.
No, I actually rode by you going to work the other day, and I was on my bike taller than your car.
And Z has probably met him. I don't know if Wade has, but Max is my only employee, and Max is my size as well. So each of us looks very ridiculous driving the car.
A clown car kind of thing. I've actually never seen the truck in operation.
Oh no, it's amazing.
It really exists.
It's 55 miles a gallon?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, it's got a 5-gallon tank, and the first time I heard it had a 5-gallon tank, I'm like, God, this is ridiculous. We don't fill that thing up once a week, and we're around the city non-stop. And it's perfect for...
That is, a 2-cylinder, like a motorcycle.
Yeah, and it's perfect for deliveries because we can tuck into little tiny spots.
Oh yeah.
Like Ponce Leon.
Yeah, exactly. And then it happens in the French Quarter all the time. If we're in the French Quarter making a delivery, because we do home deliveries as well, is if we get into a place where we've got somebody coming around giving tickets, we're usually back in time by the time the ticket lady has figured out what to do with this truck that she doesn't. What is this? Don't worry about it, I'll get it out of the way. So it's never gotten a ticket. I have been pulled over once by a policeman who thought it was ridiculous that it was on the streets. But it has an inspection sticker.
If they ever tell you to put it in the bicycle lane, then you know it's a problem.
It would fit.
But we get some other coffee now from Jeff, don't we?
Yeah, so we get our Fairtrade Espresso and a delicious decaf. It's the best decaf coffee I've ever had in my life, which I didn't even know was a real thing.
Yeah.
And then everything available for our French presses. And right now we've got a really nice Colombian, and we just got a Sumatran. If you want to, you sent me an amazing description of that earlier today. If you want to talk about it.
Yeah, it's actually the same bean that blends in with the espresso.
Oh, good. Okay.
And it's kind of wild and earthy. It's not a coffee flavor that people who really love Colombian, that kind of middle of the road flavor, will recognize, because it's jungly. And it really tastes tropical. You can tell that it is a tropical fruit, and you'll enjoy it. Wait till tomorrow though, because French press it'll bubble too much.
Okay.
It was roasted this morning.
Gotcha. Do you want to talk at all about getting the beans in through the port?
Yeah, one of the things that's really interesting about the coffee industry is the beans go where the money is. So fair trade beans tend to be more expensive for a roaster. For me as a roaster, because I only get 10 bags at a time of 5 different coffees, it's pretty difficult to steer coffee, which is what it's termed in the industry, of where it's going to be ported. But the interesting thing about New Orleans is because of its proximity to the Midwest and Chicago and Cincinnati and Memphis and Nashville and all the other major metropolitans north of us, a lot of coffee comes through New Orleans, but it usually stops here and gets loaded on a truck and keeps going. And it doesn't stop here for very long. I have worked with a couple different green brokers, and a green broker is the person who travels like Wade travels. Goes all over to these different small third world countries and finds the farmers or the co-ops that they're going to buy beans from. I work with them because I'm 2 people. My company's 2 people, and I've got a truck to drive, so I can't go traveling as much as Wade does. So I don't have the opportunity to go to these farms, and so I have 2 different companies, actually 2 gentlemen, that I trust to find things that I will like. They send me samples and then decide, based on what I like, what Coast Roast likes, what different roasters in this area like, what will go where.
And they're based?
One's in Houston.
Okay.
One is based here, but most of their warehousing is on the 2 coasts, but they do have warehouse space here. And usually their warehouse space is drop it, container it, and keep it moving.
Gotcha.
Is it sold? Is it sold as in like you pay for it as it's leaving wherever it's coming from, or does it get here and then get sold at auction, or?
There's no auction in coffee. It's mostly contracts. So I was actually working on this today, and the way it works is I find coffee that I like and I project what I'm going to use over the next 3 months.
So you buy it on contract in advance from the
I
grower.
don't front the money, but I promise I'm going to buy it.
Right.
And that's based on a fluctuating number that is different every day.
Right.
That's a
The
commodity
stock
price.
Which is Wade's favorite
On the
number.
commodities.
Yeah.
And
And
fair
then-
trade is a premium above
Right.
the New York market rate.
Exactly. And the New York market rate is for the farmed, cultivated, machine processed Brazilian, basically.
Right.
It's the bottom barrel
Right.
number. And then every coffee that you probably drink, unless you go and slum it and do community from time to time,
Which you do.
is a different number above that.
Right.
And fair trade, some of the smaller parcels such as Jamaica, or Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, those are much higher just because they're such
Yeah,
small
so
lots.
small amount of land.
Right, exactly. So Ethiopians are higher because they've got further to come. Cheaper is Mexico, even though it's just as high quality as some of the further far field coffees.
But you
because
only
it's
ship
coming
it.
here. Right, you're only shipping it from Mexico to New Orleans instead of from
Minimum
Ethiopia
amount
to
of
Brazil
right.
to New Orleans.
Okay.
And so when I start talking to them, I have to talk way out in the future. So when they first came to me and said, "Can you do this?" I said, "I'll try."
Right.
So what happened was that the linchpin to the whole thing was that Indonesian. And the Indonesian, they took a chop of it, which is what they call it, and it can be anywhere from 10 bags to a container, coming out of Indonesia, ended up tucked into a container that was coming to the port of New Orleans instead of going to Houston or Seattle
Right.
or Florida or wherever it was headed. And that
Does it
takes
ship for Houston? It ships in through Galveston, or Like Port Orange or?
Houston is a port, so Port of Houston gets
Right on the
direct
ship
shipments.
channel.
Okay, ship channel through Port
Exactly.
Orange.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a lot of coffee importation that happens through Houston as well.
We're still the second largest port after New York, but Houston's catching up. We're
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I didn't know that there was that much going up that ship channel.
Yeah, well, we would, I'm sure Wade has got more information about this, but we would be bigger than Houston by a large.
Oh, yeah,
if it
yeah,
weren't
no.
for some
But
politics.
Houston has taken a lot from us.
Yeah, because of the rail lines. Anyway, so, long story short.
And because they've actually tried to go after the coffee market. I mean, it's
Yeah.
unclear if the port is, we're getting way off the,
Yeah.
it's unclear if the Port of New Orleans is doing what it needs to do to bring coffee, particularly after Katrina.
Yeah. Well, and we also have Silo Calf here, and Silo Calf, you buy rail cars full of coffee, not 150-pound bags, which is what I buy. So when they came to me, I had to steer some of that, and I had to kind of get them to. I have to make a contract. They don't have to make a contract. They can tell me goodbye tomorrow. So we kind of do it on a gentleman's agreement or ladies and gentlemen agreement that we're going to do business together and we're going to try to take care of each other. Because what I'm working on, I have to basically, if they decide that they don't care for my product anymore, I've got to figure out a way to use up the contract that I've made.
Right, utilize it, yeah.
Okay. So it's a tenuous thing for roasters, and that's why, another reason why it's been very difficult for them to find this situation, because roasters get burned, sorry the pun, roasters get burned all the time by this new hot restaurant that wants their own special blend, and they bring on something into their inventory that is fairly specific, because there are some coffees that have really definitive profiles. Yirgacheffe from Ethiopia has a lot of lemon in it, and it's really assertive. And it's not a very popular coffee in the general coffee public. Really educated coffee drinkers love it because it's so different from everything else. But if you buy it, number one, you're paying a premium. Number two, if you don't have somebody that's going to buy it, it'll end up sitting in your warehouse and going bad. And so that's why getting a roaster to do what I'm doing for them is difficult. The last thing, why I wrap up here, is I have two roasters, one that's a 5 kilogram roaster and one that's a 15 kilogram roaster. That sounds like a lot. But most of my competitors are on 30 kilos or higher roasters. And what that means is that if I've got a roaster that big, I got to get 10 people to agree on what they're going to buy from me. As opposed to if you opened up a restaurant and said, I'm only going to buy 5 pounds a week from you and I want a specialty blend, no problem, I got it.
Because you can roast a small amount at a time.
I can roast down to 3 pounds at a time, efficiently and accurately every single time.
And really getting 10 people to agree on our end breaks down to the roaster calling and saying, this is your only option. Like we don't even get a say. This is what you're
I
going
mean,
to do.
the advantage of doing business with us is we buy a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
This is what we do. And because we want to develop more appreciation for a fair trade market, clearly, if we have somebody who will play with us, which is what Geoffrey's been willing to do, then we want to make a long-term commitment, that lets him go out and lets us go out. And then the hard part is getting people to care what they're drinking. I mean, we've seen nothing since we've been here, a steady increase in how many people come and how much we sell, but do they really understand? I mean, do they understand the 10%? I mean, we're not coffee snobs. Do they understand 10% of what Geoffrey's talking about? I don't know. You tell me, Chris, but I doubt it.
Well, probably not. No.
They know it's not Louisiana, like I used to, drive a lift truck and pull it in, pull it out, and we were doing contracts in the Vietnam War out there off Chef Mentor, but
I mean, people are aware of fair trade. I mean, as far as like every little nuance, I mean, some people are, some people are. I mean, I'll sit back in my office back there, and I hear all kinds of things, and so some people are kind of, picky about those things, but most people I don't think really, when you go someplace.
Well, and decaf is a good example. We're very proud of what Geoffrey's done for us on decaf, and that we have it. But I don't know if we don't sell much decaf in a day.
No.
Nobody does.
Yeah, so sometimes.
But the people that buy it, if we don't have it,
I know, we make a commitment, we strap it up and we, you know, brew it and keep it fresh, but, you know, if we sell a full air pot, I'd be surprised every day. I mean, it's a commitment to being a coffee house, and we're very proud of that decaf, but we could talk all day and we're like, oh, are we just talking to ourselves? I guess so.
Well, I'll get decaf next time.
Well,
Thank you,
no, same price, but I mean, you know, the point is the point. Let me throw it open, because